Among her many other talents, our mother could play that. It's called Dizzy Fingers. We would plead with her, play Dizzy Fingers, play Dizzy Fingers. It was like magic to us. She had a gift for music, but think of the practice, persistence, and knowing her, prayer, that it took to turn the technical demands of that piece into pure joy for those who listened to her play it. Delphine Catherine Undem grew up in the tiny town of Rogers, North Dakota. One of her earliest memories was of the Christmas gathering at her Grandma Farrell's hotel, her favorite event of the year. My grandmother had the greatest influence on my early life, Mom wrote. Her wit, tremendous energy, great courage, and infallible common sense were a constant source of inspiration to me. She encouraged Mom's interest in music and talked to her about world affairs. She was, Mom said, an example for me to better myself. Grandma Farrell certainly showed me how to be charitable to others. Those down on their luck knew that they could get a good meal at the hotel. Her father, Mart, managed the elevator, eventually becoming the principal shareholder and a landowner too. She said he was a self-made man, a farm boy who was industrious and wise. He instilled in her an interest in education, and she spent many hours doing bookwork for him at the elevator. He too was known for his charity to others. I'm sensing a theme here. Her mother, Eva, was an example of patience and kindness and perspective. Here is a note that her mother wrote when Mom was 10. Dear Delphine, I hope things will always come your way all through life as they do now. It's too bad you couldn't go skating tonight, but the ice will be there tomorrow. Love, Mother. She was the oldest of 6 children. Elaine, Ione, and Pat became nurses, starting a family tradition that continues today. Larry and Danny farmed the land within sight of the elevator that defined the town. After working for a year, Mom went to the University of Minnesota, graduating with a major in psychology and a minor in economics. She was president of her sorority, business manager of the University Magazine, very active at the Newman Center and for other organizations, and she played a grueling piano solo live on the radio. Of course she did. In 1947, I'm not supposed to say this, but Father already broke the code. She was chosen to be Miss North Dakota. The state wasn't affiliated with the national pageant at that time, or we all know who would have been Miss America. At the university, she met Willis Brakke, a farm kid from Jackson County, who had gone off to war in the South Pacific. They made their home in Laverne and never left, except when Dad was called back to the Korean conflict. They built the house on West Bishop Street where Mom lived for more than 60 years. After 2 decades, she re-entered the workforce as a social worker, eventually becoming responsible for foster care for 3 counties. By doing so, she secured our parents' financial future, allowing Dad to pursue his love of public service and enabling them to travel widely during their retirement years. But those weren't the most important results. In her letter applying for that first position, Mom wrote, I feel that as a caseworker, I will be able to fulfill an ambition that I have always had to help those who are in some need. And that's what she did. When she got a call in the middle of a cold winter night, she would go to help a family in trouble, even though she was full of fear that she would end up in a ditch. Mom was blessed with wonderful friends. Many of them preceded her in death. If I started to list their names, you would be awash in memories at the very sound of them. You can remember them laughing and crying and living. Trusted and faithful friends who were there for each other. So many of you here today deserve recognition for everything you have done for Mom. There is no way to properly thank you and nowhere to begin because there is nowhere to end. Mom would not want anyone to be left out. Friends and co-workers and neighbors and caregivers and parishioners and fellow volunteers and on and on. This was her community, and it was Dad's. That's why they stayed here until their deaths. And that's why they tried to improve it at every turn. Mom's many community activities included leading the SHARE program. The sharing came naturally, but it involved a great deal of work too. And she was on the board of the Mary Jane Brown home when the Oaks was built. It is fitting that she spent about a year living in each place before she died. A special part of Mom and Dad's relationship was their love of each other's families. Dad became an Undem, and Mom became a Brakke. Two events were highlights for her every year. The Easter celebration of the Brakke family, and the gathering of the Undems to watch the twins play some team in pinstripes. It probably won't come as a surprise to you that my dad could be a bit difficult at times. He was fiery. Mom was a rock. Mom was a rock. They made a great team, but she did the heavy lifting, with him and with us. One of the grandkids said, she married a force in Willis, and then raised and endured 4 children with the strongest and yet most divergent personalities imaginable. She deserves her rest. She could be tough, and she could be direct, but she picked her spots. Most of the time, it was just acceptance and understanding. Before he died, Dad wrote a 3-page letter to the grandchildren. It was all about Mom. She is as honest as they come, he wrote. She is selfless, always giving more than she receives. She is resilient and able to fight off anything that comes her way. She can carry amazing burdens and still be everyone's good friend. She spent the next few months at the hospice cottage. You grandchildren, Abby, Kate, Ryan, Anna, Peter, Martin, Kristen, Daniel, Michael, Crystal. Learn from the best. It is so important to have good role models. Those who inspire you not just with their words, but with their deeds. The kind of role model that Grandma had in her Grandma Farrell is the kind that she has been for you. And someday, it will be your turn. Had your grandmother written this eulogy, it would have all been about you. Your interests, your activities, your favorite foods, your unique talents. She cared about each of you as an individual and loved that you enjoyed being together whether she was there or not. Please watch over her namesake, Delphine, her first great-grandchild, born just weeks ago. To understand Mom, you need to understand her faith. She was serious about it her whole life. She was not one to break the rules, but she knew that the rules didn't define her church, that its beating heart is the care of those in need. I think that being buried by a happy, caring priest standing in for a happy, caring pope would please her greatly. We are expected to give of our time, talent, and treasure. Her scorecard? Check, check, and lots of checks. More than anything, she taught us to pray. When she got word a half-century ago that her father had finally succumbed to ALS, she immediately dropped to her knees and began to pray. When we were in trouble, she prayed for us. Those friends and relatives that she lost, she was still praying for them, as evidenced by the funeral cards that she kept close. The dizzy fingers had slowed down, but they could still hold a rosary, each bead a prayer. And she called on St. Jude, the patron saint of lost causes, with such regularity that she feared she had worn him out. I hope they connect soon, because some of us could still use the help. With gifts from God and her own practice, persistence, and prayer, Mom mastered the difficult passages of life to make some beautiful and joyful music for us all.